welcome to the Academic Success Program workshop on study tools and test taking. Before we get into it, let's just chat for a second. So, test grades, the only thing that test grades can tell you about you is how well you did on a test. It doesn't measure how smart you are, it doesn't measure your future success in life, it doesn't measure your worth as a person. So we just want to put this in perspective right now, because while it's obviously important to get good grades on tests, it's not the only thing that's important. Alright, so now that we got that out of the way, take the pressure off a little bit. So here's a great quote to start off with: luck favors the prepared. So let's be really lucky with our exams and prepare as much as possible. So one way to do this that's good, or two things that are really helpful for your study time, is setting clear start and end times. That's why that little picture is there, bookending it, right? So if you're like, all right, I'm going to study from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., because you don't want to go much more than an hour and a half, 2 hours. That's why we don't like cramming, because it burns out your poor little brain. So clear start and end times, you know. And if you want to bookend it by like calling somebody at the beginning and say, hey, I'm going to study for an hour right now, and then at the end being like, hey, I did it, that could be helpful too. Second thing, and a lot of companies use this for their employees to get really good productivity, but also while keeping a good mindset and well-balanced mentality, if you will, is the 50-10 rule. So that means doing work or a certain task for 50 minutes, and then taking a 10-minute break. Then 50 minutes of work, 10 minutes break. So that's actually really helpful, because you know, again, you have that clear start and end time, and then you know you have a 10-minute break. It's pretty good. Also, making a practice test environment. So instead of studying, you know, on the couch with your book in your lap or whatever, go to an actual desk situation, maybe in the library or I don't know, classroom lounges that seem like classrooms, and just get yourself settled in that way, because getting in that mode is helpful, and it might actually help you remember certain things if you're in the same mind frame and position and everything that you were when you were studying. And test anxiety. Managing test anxiety is huge for doing well on exams, obviously. And we're going to talk more about that a little later. So, one way to do well on tests for the whole semester depends on how you start the semester. And even if it's not the beginning of the semester right now, you can get started now. So basically, having a daily and weekly review system for yourself. So whether that means reviewing your notes for each class, just for 5 or 10 minutes for each class every day. The repetition really solidifies it in your head, and you'll see, like, by the time your first test comes up, if it's like a few weeks from now, it's so much easier to go and study for that once you've had daily or weekly reviews. If you do that now, like I said, the end result, it's so much easier to do better on your final, because you've built up that knowledge base in your head the whole semester. On a different note, using all the strengths around you. So obviously we have our own individual strengths, right? That's what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about is all the support systems around you give you strength as well. So for example, professors, the tutors in the university tutorial program, the academic success program, study groups, your classmates, all types of resources around you. So you want to use them, because you're not here alone, you know? Okay, now, in preparing for exams, we don't have to just go in blindly and study everything that we ever got on this in class or on the subject, right? There's certain ways that you can give yourself a heads up. One way is by talking with the professors. Why not? They're the ones who created the test, and you're interested in doing well, and you're interested in the class and the material, so you can talk to them about it and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking for my approach to studying for this test. And then they can guide you in the right direction, or say, yeah, that looks great, or no, don't worry about that section, and there you go. That's very helpful for when you start to study. Also, if your tests are cumulative, meaning that they build on the previous tests, then it can be helpful for you to study the quizzes and assignments and old exams in that same class that you had, you know, this current semester. Not using other people's exams, that is actually cheating, and we're very serious about academic integrity here, so words of the wise. But your same tests from that class, there might be questions from those tests on your next one. So use those as review guides also. And then also taking clues from your professor, like I said, when you talk to him or her. your textbook and class notes. Now we have two presentations on here. One is on reading strategies and one is on class notes, and you can get tons of info there about how to get clues from those sources for your exam. So, all right, now once you're actually in the test environment that you already practiced for, you want to get there early, and because you can settle in, be calm with it. You know that quote from the Steve Prefontaine movie? What is it called? The coach says, if you're on time, you're late, and if you're early, you're on time. It's a good one. So you could try and go for that. And then also, this might sound simple, but wearing layers, because when you're too hot or too cold, it's hard to concentrate. It's hard when you're uncomfortable. So you want to be prepared for that. And then also staying focused. So one way to stay focused is eating right for that day. Make sure you eat something. Even if you're late, just grab a granola bar or something. That's really important because your brain needs that. And then another idea also comes from the athletic world, which is, so when you have a goal, it's better for you to actually visually see it than just keep it in your head. Okay, so now it's test time. You're at the exam. Woo! First, you want to make sure you read the directions carefully. So that might seem like, I'm not wasting time on the directions, I know what I have to do, it's a multiple choice test. But no, you want to make sure you do that. Here's an example why. It's a dramatic example, but what you want to do, the example is that there was this professor one time that had this really long, drawn-out 5-page exam, and people were going through it and freaking out. One guy left in the beginning. Guess why he left? He's the only one who read the directions, and it just said, do not answer any of these questions, put your name at the top of this test, and you're free to go. So there you go. Definitely want to be reading those directions. Relaxing when you get there. When you first get there, you just want to take a deep breath and settle in. And we're going to talk, like I said, more about that. And then giving yourself a heads up. So you want to look, you don't want to just assume, okay, I'm just going to start and it's all the rest of these questions. No, you want to see how many questions there are, what type of questions they are. Also, if you have a question about the questions or if something's unclear, ask the professor. You definitely want to be clear on what you're supposed to be doing or anything that's a little fuzzy. Ask them. And if it's something that's inappropriate to ask, they'll tell you. They're not going to answer it, so don't worry about it. And then also listening for if there's any instructions. You don't want to be so into your test that you're not even hearing if the professor is giving you extra instructions that weren't on the test. Okay, now test anxiety. So this is what we were talking about before with learning how to be a little more relaxed with it. So one idea is acting as if. So even if you didn't study as much as you know you should have when you're going into the test, you can still act calm and confident for your own self, even just in your head. And the act as if idea is that when you start acting like it, your feelings follow. So that could be helpful because even if it just calms you down a little bit. Putting the test into perspective, like we talked about before, tests are important, but they're not the definition of you, okay? So we want to just kind of right-size it, calm down a little bit. It helps take the pressure off. Also, in your head, obviously, yelling stop or visualizing a stop sign, and that's it. When those nasty, nervous thoughts come up, you just want to be like, stop, blank, that's it, and then refocus on what you're doing. Praising yourself. So you might be wondering why there's a picture of Remy Martin, the hip-hop artist, on there. Well, she has this one interview where she talks about something about self-confidence, because they were asking her, because she's clearly a very confident woman, if you've ever listened to her music, but in certain ways. Okay, I'm not condoning her music, let's just get that straight. But anyway, she had a great concept. She said that if you can pick one thing about yourself and just love it, you're good to go. So we're going to do the same thing with exams. Even if you crammed the night before, you woke up late, you made this mistake or that mistake, you didn't eat breakfast, it's okay. Picking one good thing that you did, hey, you showed up to the test, all right? There you go. There's that one good thing, and we're just riding that out, okay? And neuroscience tricks. So I'm not going to try to explain neuroscience. That's why we have our physics and chem and bio tutors. But what I am going to say is that there's this, so here's what I've learned about neuroscience. There's neural pathways in your head that whether you're starting on a negative or positive thought process, whichever one it is, it makes this groove in your brain so that once you start, it goes all the way through, and it's much easier for it to be either a downward spiral of thoughts or just a continuously good feeling of and type of thought, like the idea that success breeds success. So what we want to do is realize what we're up against. If test anxiety has been an issue for a while for you, then you're really taking on a challenge right now, and you should be proud of yourself for that, because it's really hard to get out of that rut of negative thinking. And there are in-depth ways to deal with that, which brings us to, which brings us to this, student counseling services. They have like really helpful ways to do that. And if you feel like, oh, counseling, no, get that stigma out of your head. It's false, okay? Use the services that are available to you. They're great. That's their phone number. All right, now back to breaking anxiety, right? So breaking through it. There's a muscle relaxation exercise that's helpful. So one thing is, when we are stressed about something or nervous, a lot of times we'll like hold tension in our body and not even realize it. So this muscle relaxation idea is to, if you like are kind of noticing there's a certain tense muscle, like your shoulders or whatever, or even if you don't really know what it is, if you just like tense yourself up more, notice how it feels, and then let yourself relax. And then let yourself continuously relax more. So it's the idea of tuning into your body and then making it more tense, and then you can feel how nice it is to relax. So that's just a nice little hint there, or a little tip. Taking a breather. So if you click on that link that says taking a breather, you go to, it's just a really nice visualization meditation that comes up. So that guides you through a nice meditation to get more on that positive neural pathway track. And then chipping away. Speaking of track, didn't even do that one on purpose, but chipping away at the wall, right? So this concept is courtesy of an excellent championship track coach in Division I college, but it's the idea of chipping away at the wall. So if you're going up against a challenge, right, so his thing is, if you keep doing mile time trials and they're really hard, or any type of hard workout, the more you do them, the more you're chipping away at that wall, and eventually once you break through the other side, you don't even know all the things you're going to accomplish over there. It's just going to be amazing. And it works for athletics and sports and doing well over there, and it also works for mental blocks in tests and test-taking anxiety. So you can do the same thing. Right now, this work that you're doing, you're chipping away at the wall, and that's good. And once you break through it, the world is yours, all right? Well, who said that? What movie is that from? Okay, so test anxiety professionals, we already talked about that. During tests, you want to come up with a plan, right? So we're setting one in place right now. There's this idea of using a foul shot routine. So people do that in basketball. Obviously, if you ever see somebody like bounce the ball 3 times or do a certain thing, and it's getting their body in the mode of what they're about to do, because they want to do it the same successful way every time. You can do that when you're taking the exam, whether it's listening to your favorite song on the way over, humming it on the way over, or watching one of those guided meditation type things, or watching a music video. You can have your own little foul shot routine, getting yourself mentally prepared for the test. And it's nice. It, again, works with those neural pathways of getting you to go on the right positive track. Also, mentally uploading key material, so to speak, is how we'll put it on the test. So if there's any really complicated or unclear things for you on your way to the test, if you're studying, or for your little last study session in the morning, you can kind of get those things like right in your brain, and as soon as you get to the test, you're just writing them all out. If it's the kind of test where you can write on the back of the paper, or if it's a booklet or whatever. So you're kind of just like automatically putting that info there before you even read the test, and kind of is like your own cheat sheet. So it's not really cheating. It's just a really strategic way of getting those unclear concepts clear in your head right before the test, and then on the test before you even start it. So, yeah. Okay, and some test-taking strategies. Pacing yourself. You want to, like I said, get a heads up, look through the whole thing, so that way you know how much time to spend on each thing. And answering the easiest, shortest questions first. So you don't want to get bogged down on a hard question that you might not end up figuring out anyway. You want to skip it, make a little note to yourself to circle back to it later, but then you keep going so that way you can answer all of the ones that you do know. And some quick tips. If they don't take points off for a wrong answer, just guess. You know how it was on the SATs? I think there was like different strategies and tricks for that. Same thing here. If they're not taking points off for a wrong answer, fill in the answer. Sometimes you can tell from certain questions on the test if another answer is right. So like if it's a true, false, and a multiple choice, right, and you know that true, false, you know what the answer is to that, that could possibly help you for a multiple choice that's like if you're doing process of elimination with it. So that could be pretty helpful too while you're in the test. If that's unclear, I'll explain it more. Come see me, Memorial 12. And again, going back to if those feelings come up while you're taking that test, another way to deal with it is just noting it. So, okay, I feel really anxious about this. All right, I'm anxious. And then let it float away. Because you are not your feelings. You are not the negative thoughts that come up. You are you, and you're just in this moment taking this test. You can just watch those thoughts as they come up. Noted. All right, keep it moving. All right, and then when you're done with the test, you want to make sure to check, make sure you answered all the sections, make sure you saw everything, flip it over. Also, checking the whole thing to make sure that your answers are in the right spots. You know how sometimes that Scantron stuff, they can like mess it up and you get the whole, all your answers could be right, but because you skipped one accidentally, all of them are wrong. You know, check that stuff out. Now, afterwards, if you didn't do as well as you like, let's take advantage of that, okay? So how we do that is if there's mistakes, if you make the same kind of silly mistake all the time in a math exam, check out what it is, and now you know, okay, I'm going to really take care of this once and for all. I'm not making this mistake anymore. And then readjusting it for next time. So, for example, if you're doing an essay, if you have essay questions and you always get the same kind of stuff wrong for not structuring the essay, all right, you know what, let's make an appointment with the Writing Center and figure out what they mean by structuring the essay. So that's helpful because then you make the best out of it by saying, all right, now I'm really learning this lesson and I'm going to take it with me for the long haul. And going over it with corrections, you can do that with a professor or tutor. And again, it is very helpful when your tests are cumulative because then you know what the right answers are for next time. It's great. If anybody can tell me why that picture is on this particular slide, you win some ASP swag. How do you like that? All right, and then the big picture of all of this is that it's never too late or too early to start studying. So don't worry about it. If you're watching this the night before you have a final, you made the right choice today by watching this, okay? And now you're going to get started and you're going to do great. Don't worry about the past. You can't change that now. We're just moving forward and starting with right now, you made a good decision. Now you're going to keep making good decisions. A general rule for this kind of stuff, we talk about it in another video, so I'm just going to touch on it here. Doing a little bit, a lot, instead of a lot, a little. It works for studying, it works for cleaning your house, it works for whatever. Exercising, oh yeah, exercising totally works for that. So, yeah. And the idea that you are in college, like that means that you have already made it this far. You're good enough to be here and you can become even better. So that's what we're working on here. And you just got to know you can do it. You already made the right step by watching this. So, as always, we're going to just take a minute here and you think to yourself what technique you're going to implement this week from what you just learned. All right, thinking about it, you got it. Good, go with that. And if you have suggestions, let us know. You know how to contact us. You're on our website right now. You can hit up the suggestion box, or you can come see us in Memorial 12. And thanks for watching.